Let me first say thanks for joining me. Pleasure to be with you. We're going to have another conversation, another piece to this ongoing conversation on race and our attempt to dismantle race. Today, in particular, we're going to focus on race and racism. One of the key things about racism is that the categories are necessary for racism to be real. We talk about institutional racism. We talk about different rules for us. People who call themselves black and different treatment. And the only way that you can have different treatment is if you are taught and accept that you are different from somebody else. And while science has repeatedly said over and over that there is only one humanity, one race, the human race, we have some who try their best to separate the human race, to categorize the human race, and do so to dominate a group. And so race is about domination, and racism cannot happen without the categories. And just for an example of racism through the categories, after our enslavement in this country, I remember in a speech by Frederick Douglass, Our Compromise in Nationality, where he talks about one of the key things that he thought was important for us after post-Civil War was to not be singled out as a special group. He understood that the only way that we were going to be true citizens, true people in this country with real rights, was to have our rights respected just like the group that called themselves white. He knew that separate treatment in the law, even this whole separate but equal, would not work. And it will end up biting us in, excuse my French, but biting us in the ass, in the derriere. So let's talk about some of the things that have happened since the categories and how they could not be without them. In this country, blacks in this country went through anti-miscegenation laws. And we understand that the laws in this country are responsible for teaching the people the division. If a law says that whites can't marry blacks and that there are consequences for how we will treat you in this country, if you do, then whites have to teach their kids that they cannot marry blacks. They cannot be in relationships with someone that they may grow to love. And it's law. And so because the categories were different, the laws can be set to create a situation where you have no self-determination, create a situation where the people who call themselves white have to learn through the law, just like the people who call themselves black, that there is a line between us. And that this line between us, we're going to use the law to define, and that you will have to teach your kids that they cannot cross the line. Now that's very key, because it is not a natural position for whites to not want to mix with blacks. It's not. And for whoever would teach you that this is some predetermined position, is false. Human beings must be taught everything they know. They are empty vessels, and you teach them what they know. This racist society is not organically racist. It's racist through education and law. And that's what makes it particularly, in our position, particularly interesting. We fight for individual or special status, but what we don't understand is that equality can't be had through a special status, a separate category. This country is very slick, and the way they do it with this race is very slick, because they have you automatically as soon as they can have you accept an identity different from them. Same identity means every legislation, law that I put on the books now, it affects me. Everything that I do, I have to do it because I understand that I will be affected. When I have separate categories, now I can dictate through my law other people's other categories. I can dictate their lives. I can dictate their success. And through categories and law and coercion through law, I can provide privilege to some categories, and I can provide perpetual low status for other categories. Only when I can get you to accept a category different from me, because then I can save myself from having to endure the coercion that I want for you. The biggest mistake that we can continue to make now is to continue racism in this country by teaching your kids that they are black, by teaching your kids that they are white. Until we start to teach the generations, and still we stop teaching them racism, because racism can only be had through races and through separate categories. And we find a way in this country to have one category. And there is a way to do that. And it's not through law and legislation. They already made the rules for blacks and whites. If you don't like the rules for blacks, then change your status and have your status now, your rules be the rules for the whites. That's your law now. All men were created equal. They say that in the Constitution, and it's true. You became unequal when you chose your race through contract. And so when people ask, why can't, blacks go to the UN? Because if I was America, I would say, well, blacks got a problem. Okay, I'm going to go to the UN with all the social security number, all the people who call themselves black. And I'm going to show the UN that I'm not voluntarily, I'm not making them slaves against their will involuntarily. I got all the paperwork here, every last social security number here, and it says black. And so we gave them the choice to be white Americans, because we continue to say in our rules through the history of this country that citizenship is only for white Americans, white people. And so I got my paperwork. What do they have to show that they deserve law? The same law as whites. What paperwork do they have? What claim to indigenous people or original people or, humans? What claim do they have? What contract do they have that says that this is what I claim? Because in all the contracts that I got, they got black on everything. They don't listen to Jeezy. Jeezy say white, all white, everything. And that is exactly what we need to become. All white on everything. And the quickest way to do that is to go to the Social Security and change your contract there. Because now everywhere you use that Social Security number, it's got to change your status. If you went down to the social, changed your status to white, then went to the DMV, when they pull you over, your license got to say white. And so if you go to the DMV and you ask for a printout of, exactly what your racial classification is in the system and so on and so forth, and it come back as black, well, guess what? You changed your contract at this. You got a claim against the United States. You got a claim against the federal court for the fact that you went and changed your contract one place and it's not showing you that retroactively changed you everywhere. This is contracting here. And so if you change it at the social, understand that every place you've used that social, it's got to change it to white now. Now, if you got a beef with the UN, you can say, yeah, I'm a white American, a real citizen. So I belong up here. You got to listen to me. I'm indigenous. I got an indigenous claim. Now the U.S. can't come with their social security paperwork and say, nah, he wanted the slaves. Because you can be like, no, girl, you better look at my number again. My number don't say black. Racism is contracting. Racism is a class and a caste system. The difference is you actually in this country have a choice because they can't make you a slave anymore. But you just didn't know where the choice you didn't know where the choice was. You didn't know how to choose. You were not taught how to choose. And so believe me, the lesson in this, you want to end racism, you have to choose correctly. Jeezy say all white everything. And so now you have to learn how to contract in America to contract as a white American citizen. You put white on everything. Your redemption is free and it's easy. And that's how redemption should be. You shouldn't have to go to 30 different places and get all these different signatures and do all of this. That should not be what sovereignty and redemption is about. We, as the people who formerly called themselves black, we need to feel what the real American experience is. And that's being able to actually be a citizen in the country that we built. And so before we talk about leaving and isolating ourselves, let's actually try to be American first and reap the benefits of the hard work that our ancestors did to create this place. Racism is teaching your kids that they are black or white and keeping the game going. Thank you for your time.